All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our Friday Tech Talk. Today we actually have one of our graduates, Rachel Kirker, and they're actually going to talk about data engineering and healthcare insurance letters. So thank you for being here and take it away.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. So again, I am a 2022 Tech Academy graduate. I studied full stack web developing and cybersecurity. The next slide. So just a little icebreaker here. I have 2 truths and 1 lie. So if you guys want, either raise your hand or in the comments, tell me which one you think is the lie. Okay, I see you, Jacob. Anyone else? I mean, you're not wrong, Jacob. All right, so I am actually a natural redhead. So the 2 truths are number 1 and number 3. So fun little fact about me. All right, let's get this presentation started. So today I'm going to be talking about my day-to-day life as a data engineer. What I do for health insurance letters using Publisher, Ecrion Drive, template EDX, and then we will go into a question and answer after that. So first, like I said, my name is Rachel, graduated from the Tech Academy. Amazing school. So glad that I did it. I have learned so much from them. So it's really nice. So a day-to-day life as a data engineer, every morning, as you guys do in class, we have our daily stand-ups where we go around, say what projects we're working on, if we have any issues that we need to get troubleshooted. So that's always very helpful. And I can hands down say I have the best manager at Nava Health that she is the best manager that I've ever had, hands down. Everyone is so much fun to work with, and stand-up is always really fun. And sometimes on Fridays, my manager will actually have a wheel where spins around and then play a little game, go back to stand-up and just flip-flop back and forth. So it just really makes it just that much more enjoyable. Before I started, and we still have occasional training on this, we go through HIPAA compliance. And as you will see later on in my presentation, I had to black out a bunch of stuff because of HIPAA compliance. And if you're not familiar with HIPAA, I can't remember exactly what HIPAA stands for, but the basics of HIPAA, it's like it's with your doctor, it's like patient doctor confidentiality. So there's a lot of personal information that cannot be released. So we go through a lot of training about that. The JIRA board, I forget what board you guys use in training where you have your cards, but our JIRA board is like that. So we have our different projects up there where you can do like pull requests and stuff, and where you can drag and drop your specific project under your name so everyone knows that that's your project. We use a lot of JavaScript and SQL, and with that, essentially what we do is we use JavaScript and SQL to pull patient information and data from doctors' offices. So Nava Health, and what we do, we are essentially the middleman in between health insurance companies and doctors' offices. So any health insurance letter that you get in the mail, I've probably worked on it. So one letter from any health insurance group that we work with can go to 10,000 people, because I think we work with millions of customers, which is pretty cool. So then the information that I gather from JavaScript and SQL, I put into a letter, which I will show you what one of the letters that I recently worked on. We do mainly work on English letters, but we also do work on some Spanish letters, which is pretty cool. We are not required to be fluent in Spanish to work at this company, and we get templates for all English and Spanish letters, which is extremely helpful. Grooming projects. We have this probably twice a week, and what this is, we sit down with someone who goes over all of the upcoming projects, and then they go over exactly what the health insurance companies are looking for in these projects, and if any sort of logo needs to be changed or addresses need to be updated and things like that. With compliance, that just circles back around to HIPAA compliance and what the health insurance companies are looking for, because they do change. Updating health insurance logos. We just recently did one for a health insurance company. I don't think I'm allowed to say which one though. And then with testing projects, we use something called non-prod, which we go in and we are able to use dummy patients, which there's no HIPAA in there, which is nice. So then we can actually test and see our letters in real time to see if everything is good. So, and what Publisher is, that's where we put all of our letters, and I'll be showing you this later on. What Publisher does, it's essentially like a fancier Microsoft Word, but for developers where you can actually input code, which is pretty cool. The one downside about Publisher, it's very finicky. I don't know if any of you have actually worked with Publisher before. If you have, you will understand the struggle. You change one thing, 4 other things change. So it can be a little finicky, but it's a really cool application to use. So let's go to the next slide. So this is a UHC, stands for United Healthcare. This is a United Healthcare approval letter that I worked on. And you can see on the left, and this is only one screenshot because I can't show you much more than this in the letter. But so essentially, this is a basic. So you're looking at Publisher. This is the fancier Microsoft Word that I was just mentioning. So with every health insurance letter, you have a cover letter and then a blank page, because they you can print double-sided if that's what the health insurance company is looking for. In this particular letter, you can see that there's English and Spanish in here. So then you have a Spanish cover letter, another blank page, just copying the English side. And then where it says, it's actually highlighted where it says page set, and then the Spanish page set below that, the page set that you're on, this is the letter. And then you go to the NDML in English and Spanish. And an NDML is essentially, it's a non-disclosure agreement saying, we have different translators for essentially any language that you need, from Spanish to French, Italian, German. Is pretty cool. So then that goes at the end of a letter. So then let's move on to some more of the code. So if you can see where it says at the top, like patient first name, last name, patient address, and everything that's highlighted in gray, there's actually code behind there. So this is how all of the letters can go to thousands of people at the same time, because all of this is auto-filled whenever the letter is actually sent out, which is pretty cool. This is, sorry about the formatting here. This is the same letter, but just looking at the next page in Spanish. So everything that's blacked out is in Spanish. So we can just copy and paste the code that we used from the English into all these different things. And the hardest part about doing letters, at least for me, it's a lot of health insurance companies have very specific requirements for how many pages the health insurance letters can be. So it's just hard to condense everything to still make it look clean and nice. If a health insurance company only wants, say, 2 pages, but you have a lot of text that needs to go in there. So, and what I love about this job is it's equally left-brained and right-brained. So the left brain is, coding and everything. And then the right brain is just making it look pretty and matching the templates. So that's just one of the many things that I love about this job. The next one, going into Ecrion Drive, these are just a few examples of the health insurance companies that we work with. So Experience, HAP is Health Alliance Plan, Home Health, Humana, OCN stands for Optum Care Network, UHC stands for United Healthcare, and then WellMed. We work with every major health insurance company, but there's too many to put on here. So for example, home health, that is geared towards the elderly population where there might be a man or a woman who is home and bedridden and they need some sort of like nursing care. So that's what that particular one is. And then this, unfortunately, I had to block a lot out. But this is the template EDX that I had mentioned earlier. So with this, I know it looks super confusing. And the first few times you work with it, it is very confusing. So what you're seeing here and what's in the blacked out parts, it's essentially all of the connections that make the letter work when you're testing. So you have things like patient name, patient address, and you just have to make sure that the left side, the blue side, matches up with the right side, the green side. And then in the little pink boxes there, you have some C#. So you just have to make sure that all those connections match perfectly. Otherwise, it renders your letter ineffective. The amount of time that myself and other developers just spin our wheels is trying to make sure that this is all formatted correctly. It can be pretty taxing sometimes, but when you get your letter working, it's just the best feeling in the world. It's kind of like one of those coding things where you have 200 lines of code and you have an extra comma. You just can't figure out where, why it's not working. Kind of the same thing with this. This is one of my favorite quotes by David Goggins. And if you're not familiar with him, highly recommend that you look him up. Very motivational. And this is one of my favorite quotes, that when you're driven, whatever's in front of you will get destroyed. And I feel like you can just apply this to any portion of your life, that if you are determined and you love what you do, you'll always win. Next slide. Okay. So what time is it? So if there's any questions, I can definitely answer them now. So that was unfortunately the bulk of what I can show you, just because like I said, there's a lot of HIPAA compliance that I can't show. But if there's any questions, please feel free.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel.
Of course, thank you.
I'm just curious. So is this your first job outside the Tech Academy?
Yes, it
After
is.
the Tech Academy? Okay, got it. And were you specifically wanting to work in healthcare, or is this something just like kind of fell into your plate?
So this job actually literally fell into my lap. So I know for some people, myself included, it actually took me about 6 months to find a job, just because the job market is just so tight right now. And also another issue that I ran into is a lot of employers were looking for 5 to 10 years experience for an entry-level job, which just makes no sense to me. So on the side, I would do some personal projects. I cleaned up my it wasn't a capstone, but the project that all of you have probably worked on or are working on to graduate.
Like the life project?
Yes. That was a lot of fun. So I cleaned that up, just sharpening up my skills as a full stack web developer. And one day I get a random call from a recruiter who came across my LinkedIn page. And she said, "Hey, are you interested in this job?" So sure, because I know once you get your foot in the door, you're in. And after your first job, it's so much easier to move on. And what I recommend, it's definitely keep looking you'll find something, even though I know how frustrating it can be. Make contacts, go to tech meetups. Those are phenomenal for making good contacts, because you never know if someone has a job opening. So definitely recommend going to one of those conferences. And there's so many. You can find most of them in your area. They even have virtual ones. Definitely recommend printing out some business cards and asking friends and family to pass them out to their friends and family and stuff. So, but I absolutely adore working for NavaHealth. It's so much fun.
No, that's great. And then I don't know if you already mentioned this, but do you work remotely? Or
Yes,
is
I
this
do.
something you got it.
Yes, I do work remotely. My company is based in Central Time. So thankfully, I'm a morning bird. A lot of times my schedule starts at 6 a.m. And I'm in California, or 6:30 in the morning, which, yes, it was offered as remote. Most people are actually spread out around the country, which is pretty cool. So you have people like me in California, Texas, on the East Coast. And then we also have a number of people who are working from overseas. So then we're a 24-hour business. Yeah, I definitely lucked out with getting a remote job. But sometimes...
How do you feel about that? Because, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. I think I'm about to answer what your question is. Sometimes remote jobs can be slightly lonely, just because it's me in my office. But on the flip side of that, it's nice not to have any distractions, where I can really just focus and get what I need done. So there's definitely pros and cons to both. But for me, I do personally work a lot better just being in silence or listening to music and working from home. But on the flip side, I am also extremely extroverted, so it can get a bit lonely. So it just really depends on your personality type.
Got it. And then how did that feel working with, like, this was technically your first tech job after the tech academy. So how did that work with working remotely? Was it harder to ask for help, or how did that process work?
You mean asking for help for doing
If
any
you ever got
project?
stuck on anything, since it's your first tech job, or was that an easy transition for you? You immediately got through it because of everything you learned in the tech academy?
Yes, so it is extremely easy to ask for help. I reached out to the Tech Academy a few times asking for assistance, and you guys are phenomenal and always willing and able to assist. And same thing with my job. I'm able to ask for help anytime I need, and there's, I believe, 5 other developers, including myself. So we are a smaller team, but everyone is just so welcoming and happy to assist, which is just amazing.
No, got it. That's awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
All right, so it looks like we have a question from Jacob. So what was your interview like? Were you technically quizzed with the basic dev questions, so like a technical interview, more along the lines of company applications, or mainly just soft skills?
So for this job, it actually surprised me. There was no, at least for the letters developer, that's my job title as a data engineer. There was no test like that for during the interview process, which honestly surprised me because we do work with SQL and things like that, but I don't solely work with SQL. It's just a little bit here and there, which is why I don't think they quiz me on it. But also, the better your portfolio and your live project, some companies, they'll look at it and say, okay, he or she, they're great, they're stellar. So some companies will actually give you a pass on that. But it was my current manager and one other developer who interviewed me. It went extremely smooth, lasted about an hour, I think. They asked me about some of my soft skills, what got me into technology, what I see myself doing in 5 or 10 years. So it was honestly, I think, the most relaxed interview that I've ever had. And they made me feel very comfortable. And it's just overall a very warm setting.
Sounds like a great company culture, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so out of curiosity, I know you kind of went over your day-to-day of what you kind of do, but how much of that is like basically coding? Because I know a lot of coding jobs, you only code for really a couple of days here and there, and then the rest is debugging or working on other things. What is that like for you in your position?
So in my position, not much coding at all. There's a specific team that solely works on SQL, but us developers will step in and assist if we need to. But we're broken down into many different parts. Like there's a QA portion that after we're finished with our letter, will get sent up, and then they'll take such an eagle eye, which I don't even know how they do it. It's very impressive. And then they will say, you're good to go. I'm going to send it up. Or, hey, you need to change this small thing. So yeah, that's about it for that.
Got it.
What was the other part of your question?
That was pretty much it. How much you do like coding on a weekly basis? Because I know it differs for every position.
Mhm. Yeah. So it just depends on what position you take up with Nava Health. So some positions you'll be coding all day. And then other positions just a little bit.
Got it. And then the question from Sherry, how do you spell the non-prod product you use?
So it's non-prod, but that is only for my company. So you guys won't have access to it because you don't have the Nava Health access. A lot of it is very locked down.
Got it. And then another question from Sherry, what was the format of the interview? Was it over the phone or some type of media, like a Zoom meeting or something similar to that?
It was on Zoom.
Ah.
Yeah, they're all in Tennessee, so they didn't make me fly all the way over there for an interview.
It's very nice. Especially, I mean, after COVID, a lot of places have just like picked that up instead of just like having to go fly out. You can just do a Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So some questions about the Tech Academy. So when you were going through the boot camp, you said you did the web developer boot camp and cybersecurity boot camp.
Yeah.
Um, those are like, I know that those are two separate boot camps. So you finished the web developer boot camp and then decided to work on the cybersecurity boot camp?
Yes, in exactly that order. Started off front end web developing. I fell in love with it, went immediately back, signed up for the back end and cybersecurity because those two go hand in hand. And then just going from there.
No, sounds great.
Yeah.
And then any tips you have for people who are still in the boot camp? I know it's kind of hard to juggle everything and make sure you don't fall behind. So do you have any tips for studying and making sure that you don't fall behind?
Definitely have some sort of schedule for yourself. I know that can be difficult, but just for me, I found a schedule really helped where I would say, okay, I'm going to be working from 8 until 10, take a 20-minute break. And if you're ever spinning your wheels, I definitely recommend getting up, walking your dog, or just going for even a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood, because you'll be surprised at how much that will clear your head. And I think there's actually some psychology or science behind that too. And then you just come back and then you're able to figure out what the issue was. Or even if you're still spinning your wheels after that, everyone at the Tech Academy is just so helpful that you can always just ask them.
Got it. And then also you said that you did some side projects while you were looking for a position. Any tips on that? I know everyone's always wanting to work on projects, just don't know how to come up with ideas or where to start. What are your recommendations for that?
Um, so there's a number of different websites like Coursera and I think W3 schools where, and also you can just type into Google or Chat GPT if you're using that. And I know a lot of chat people are afraid of Chat GPT, but it's such a good tool for us developers because you can just type into Google or Chat GPT, give me a coding project to work on, and then they will spit out an answer. Or you can come up with, like, if you're into checkers, checkers is it's complicated to code, but that's the best thing is just to immerse yourself into a project that really interests you, and you definitely will hit some stumbling blocks and feel like it's impossible to do, but that's definitely part of the learning process because if you don't actively immerse yourself and really push yourself, you won't ever see how great you can be. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. And I know straight after boot camp, and I still struggle with this. And I know people have been who have been coding for 20 years, they still struggle with imposter syndrome. And I know that's definitely a real thing where you feel like you're a phony, like you don't know a lot, but that couldn't be further from the truth. You just have to have confidence, believe in yourself, and just realize how big of a team you have behind you. Even, 5-10 years from now, when you're working at another job, you can always reach out to the tech academy and say, hey, how you doing? Or reach out to someone on LinkedIn and ask for any sort of assistance. Because every single developer that I've ever met, they've been more than willing to help. So yeah. And Sherry, I saw your question about a W-2. Yes. And I think there was another question that popped up, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, I can go over them in a second. Also, you brought up ChatGPT. Do you actually use that for work as well? I know a lot of people use it because it definitely, something simple. If they want to write it up quickly, they can just do it instead. I'm curious if you also use that.
No, we have not implemented that yet. I'm not sure if we will.
Got it. All right. So few questions. So let's see. Do you get a W-2 for doing remote work? I'm sure you do, but
Yes. Yeah, it's a W-2.
got it. And then Robert has a question. When you were searching for a job, did you mostly apply for jobs or more networking than applying?
A combination of both. I applied to probably a couple hundred jobs, and a lot of them, as some of you have probably experienced, they just don't even get back to you, which was very frustrating. But you just keep on pushing and networking. That one's also a very big one. Just bring, like I said earlier, bring business cards, mingle, go to as many as you can. And thankfully, there's a lot of remote conventions like that. So you can go to 2 of them in a weekend if you wanted to. And even just talking to friends and family, you never know who has a good connection to someone in the tech industry. So you just have to look in some strange places to find jobs. But once you're in, you're in.
Got it. Thank you. And then another question from Jacob. Let's see. Let me ask, do you feel your current position offers sufficient remuneration? Can't say that word. Feel free to pass the question by.
What was that? word that you said? The remuneration?
Remuneration, sorry. So
Okay.
your basically salary money that you get from work.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Yes, I do. And it depends on what state you work in.
Got it. And then a question from Sherry. What type of JavaScript and SQL concepts have been helpful in your work?
Um, so I've recently been mainly working with JavaScript. Um, we use a lot of radio buttons in our letters whenever we're testing. We're able to click a button that you can either say, I want my letter in English or in Spanish. So that's mainly what we use JavaScript for, is for radio buttons and for different forms where you see like the patient name or the patient address, provider name, and things like that. So definitely keep up the JavaScript, and then the SQL. That's just mainly for the database, for looking at like patient data and health insurance providers.
Got it. And then out of curiosity, is your work currently hiring or not at this time?
Yes, they actually are. I think they're looking for a few more people in my position as web develop. Sorry, not web developers, letters developers. So you can definitely check them out.
Great. And this
so
kind of
this is
leads
the
up to,
company. Yeah, sorry.
perfect.
What'd you say?
I was gonna say, so this kind of leads up to Hugo's question. So I know that you said right off the bat you kind of got this position. You didn't necessarily have any working experience, but you had some side projects. So he's
Yeah.
asking how many years of experience are employers looking for? I don't know if that's in general or for your the company you work at currently.
So no, I did not do any temp work prior. I just worked on some personal side projects. And to answer your other question, Hugo, they were completely fine with me not having any previous tech job experience because they do a lot of hands-on training. Because before I worked for Nava Health, I had never heard of half of the programs that they used. And most people haven't heard of Publisher or Ecrion Engage and things like that. So they'll spend a good couple of months training you, just because there's a lot that goes into it. So if you do apply, I think they might not have listed the jobs yet, but definitely just keep going back. I see your comment, Jacob.
And Jacob, maybe you can find their recruiter on LinkedIn and reach out. That's another way to figure out if there are job listings or
Mhm.
to put it up soon or not. You can keep in contact with them.
Yeah.
But it's great to know that they're actually training you for that long. When you reached out to talk on this topic, I was actually not that familiar with it because we haven't had that many talks on healthcare. And I know a lot of developers are actually finding jobs in healthcare currently.
Yeah.
So I was really interested to have you come on and talk about this.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so currently I know you're working, but do you do any, I know we kind of said you work on side projects here and there, but are there any courses you're taking to maybe like help you with your position or other things? I know a lot of people take LinkedIn courses or Coursera and other places. Do you take any and do you recommend any that can
Not
be helpful?
currently taking any. My next goal is probably taking a course in machine learning or artificial intelligence. This has nothing to do with my job at all. I just find it absolutely fascinating. My job does have, I think, a few hundred to 1,000 different classes that you can take with free certifications. So that's pretty cool. I've done a couple of the cybersecurity ones. Working my way through that, haven't gotten another certification yet. Is more of an advanced cybersecurity. So it's definitely complicated, but I mean, you can do anything from like JavaScript to front end web developing certifications to back end to, I mean, really whatever you can think of.
No, that's great that your position is offering these opportunities for you to actually get certificates. That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
pretty
That's
cool.
very hard to come by.
Hmm.
Let's see, another question. Did you post your projects on a website, or how can you show your bootcamp projects? What other ideas would you recommend? I think like in when I did the web developer bootcamp, we created like a portfolio site and
Yeah.
I put all my projects on there. Is that how you kind of went about that?
Yes, that's what I did with mine. I highly, highly recommend that you take a hard look at your LinkedIn, because that's really the first impression that employers and recruiters get from you. Um, put, if you can, put all of your projects on your LinkedIn, because the recruiters and employers do look at it. Also, what I did in my resumes is I would have a certain section in my resume with different projects that pertain specifically to a job that I was applying for. And then I would just omit the ones that don't apply. So then they're more actually likely to click on your projects instead of having to sift through something that's relevant to their company. Um, so that's definitely what I recommend. And I know it takes forever to do, but for every job that you apply to, make sure that you tailor your resume specifically to that job. And I know it's time consuming, but the more precise and concise it is, the more likely a recruiter or an employer will pick it up.
Got it. And I know you said you actually found this job through your LinkedIn, so I'm sure you had a stellar LinkedIn account. Are there any other tips for your LinkedIn? Any keywords that you used or any other recommendations you have?
Um, no, I didn't use any keywords. I had I think his name was Cameron. He worked at the Tech Academy. And I think part of the Tech Academy is you need one or two people to leave like a review or something on your LinkedIn. Um, so definitely have someone that you've worked for or worked with write something about you, just saying, you know, X person did a stellar job at EBC company, and just have them explain a little bit what you did. So then that'll definitely boost your LinkedIn. Um, what else? Definitely have some friends or family look at your LinkedIn or your resume just to have a new perspective or a fresh eye on it, because they might notice something, or they can usually give you some very good tips in order to improve your LinkedIn. And Sherry, I see your question. Yes, they do send you, at least my setup, I have two monitors and a laptop. And then, and I'm a contractor. So once my contract is up, I send it back to the company. So it's nothing that you can keep, but it's a pretty cool setup though.
Oh, awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Please let us know if you guys do have any. Also, in case something comes after the tech talk, if they have any other questions, is your LinkedIn a great place to connect with you, Rachel?
Yeah, definitely.
I can actually share that with everyone. And then any final thoughts? Or I wait, hold
People
on.
use PCs.
Okay, got it. I was just gonna read that question. Here's
Yeah.
Rachel's LinkedIn. Any final thoughts, Rachel?
Um, thank you guys for having me and
Mhm.
for letting me share a little bit about what I do.
No, yeah, of course. We will love to have you here. Yeah, and in a future tech talk, if you're interested, please let me know. I'll definitely reach out to you as well. Let's
Yeah.
see. How do you need to show proof of citizenship? I know government contracts require proof of citizenship.
Um, I did they? I think I don't think they're asking for. Gosh, I'm completely blanking. I know that they asked
Mm-hmm.
for like my driver's license. They might have asked for my passport, but it's been a while, so I can't honestly remember. I'm sorry. Um, and we use PCs to answer your question, Sherry.
Great. And then also just to let everyone know, we are recording this presentation and I'm going to share the recording on YouTube later today. Let me just share that link with you guys so you can watch it later. Here is the link to our Tech Talk playlist on YouTube. Then also next week we don't have a Tech Talk, but the following week we will. I haven't um, posted it on Meetup yet, but it's actually another graduate, and they're going to be. We haven't decided on a topic yet, but I'll email you guys. But other than that, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us. This is very informative. We've actually, like I said, we've never had a presentation on healthcare and tech at the same time, so this was very informative. So thank you.
Of course, thank
And
you.
yeah, of course, thanks. And everyone else, thank you for joining. And I hope you guys all have a great Friday and a great weekend. And I'll see you
All right.
guys not next week, but the following week.
All right. Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Rachel. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.